What time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
May the 4th be with you. Welcome to Powerbombshells, episode 163. I'm actually Mel. That's Sam. And we are here talking about the pro wrestling we are watching. How's it going, everybody? How's it going, Sam?
Hey, how are you?
I am so super hyped. I got my bowcaster. I got my diorama in the background. I'm a walking, talking billboard for the mouse people, but I'm here. How are you?
I feel wildly unprepared because I
did all the work for us.
I was like, I knew it's May the 4th. I am at least aware of that. But we've talked about it on this show before that I have never seen any Star Wars movies ever, nor Star Trek. Neither one of those were my thing. But to happy May the 4th to all who celebrate, and happy Sunday, or whatever day this is that you're watching it, to everyone else. But I hope that if you are celebrating May the 4th, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that you have a lot of fun celebrating, because it is cool. It's fun to have different things to get excited about, especially in 2025. So I hope that you, especially some of the week that we've had. So in wrestling and in real life. So I hope that if May the 4th brings you joy and happiness, but then I hope you have all of that.
It's not bringing my dogs very much joy right now, though. So pardon the dogginess, guys. It's another dog day Sunday. So
Nikki was close. She said you would be wearing a Star Wars hat, so she was
very close. But Nikki gets it. She's like, I know it may not be our thing, but Mel will definitely be in on that.
It's not our thing, but it's definitely Mel's thing.
Like, she's that nerd, and we understand because we're other kinds of nerds. Revenge of the Fifth better, though. Yeah, fair enough, but I mean, let's be real. These guys have taken over like a whole multi-day. They've taken over. I mean, I think the jumpsuits are probably going to have mouse patches on them at this point. So, but I'm bought in. So long time bought in. So I just thought it was funny because I realized as I was putting the show together this week, and I was like, oh crap, it falls on the May the 4th. So
yeah.
And I already wore my Yoda ears last year, so I figured, what can I wear? And Bob bought this for the first, when the new ones came out, when the Force Awakens came out.
Yeah.
We dressed up and went and waited in line.
Awesome. Do what makes you happy. I'm all for that.
I know that pro wrestling people will never, ever give out to you about that sort of thing.
Most of them, anyway.
They're like, the ones that haven't worked themselves into a shoe.
Right. Nikki said I almost said Yoda, then I was like, let me just say Star Wars.
Smart. I did have the Yoda hoodie last year. So
yes.
Near the 4th. And I was like, I can't repeat. Do we have anything else? Of course we do.
I was like, of course. I was like, of course I do.
Do we have anything else?
No repeats here.
Not when it's that characters.
Right.
I don't think I could do a whole show in like a Mandalorian helmet or anything. That would be a little much. Or like a Vader helmet.
I mean, if you wore it for like 2 seconds just to do your intro, and like a little spiel or whatever, and then took it off, I think everybody would understand.
That's a lot.
Especially because we're talking about some serious topics today. And
that's the other thing. I didn't want to get too crazy because, some of the stuff. This is the way. That show is coming up. It looks great. Anyway, yes, we have some things to talk about, some things that have gone on in wrestling that are pretty cool, and some things that are not so cool but relevant, and things that we talk about a lot.
Yeah,
so we need to keep them.
And
I think, like I said to you off air, I think that keeping some of these things in the forefront, considering what's going on, are pretty important. So. I'm just going to keep dropping everything on the ground though while
That's
I'm at it.
fine.
'Cause it's one of those
The
things.
spider is here.
I'm not used to these new Wookiee paws. What can I say?
Listen, it'll take some learning and getting used to. These
I'm not
spiders
used to being tall.
to do a show dressed as your favorite wrestler, the Spider.
Maybe next time. Anything possible.
Maybe for one of their shows, you can do that.
That's true. I could.
Brad said, Brad, I'm about to ban you from this, temporarily ban you from the chat.
Early ban hammer threatening.
He's getting to, I'm going to ban him from the chat. Listen, we got one more game tonight at 7:15. So,
are we talking about baseball or?
Yeah, Brad is trying me.
Are you, Brad? Please don't come on here and goad Samantha into MLS.
No, we're not going to talk about it. There's one game left, Brad. We play tonight at 7:15.
Oh, you're coming in here like that? That's harsh.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, Nikki.
May as well just go to a Boston podcast and start a Yankees suck chant.
Hi, Jermaine. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, if you've missed us, you are walking in on Brad about to get banned for coming here and talking smack to me. And we are celebrating, Mel and some of our guests are celebrating May the 4th. If you celebrate, happy May the 4th to you as well. And then the spider, he was talking to me. He wants me to dress as the spider. Well,
I see. Wow.
I might have to do that. I might have to take you up on that. We do have our Halloween live stream that we do every year, and we typically dress as various wrestlers usually. Last year was a bit of an exception for me because it was like the one time I could pull off the Halloween character.
I liked it.
Given the thing. And so
and we kind of agreed that it was like not mandatorily wrestling.
No, it wasn't. We have typically, when we've done our Halloween live screens for those of you who have not been here for that, we do a Halloween episode, and the few times that we've done it, we've mostly dressed up as wrestlers of some sort. And then last year I went with a character. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the girl with the green ribbon. It was a Halloween story that Nikki and I always heard growing up. It's like a little children's horror story. So just about as scary as it can get for a kid. Like, it was nothing like too crazy, but there's a girl who, to give a quick summary, there's a girl who wears a green ribbon, and there's a boy named Albert who always asks her, why do you wear the green ribbon? Why do you wear the green ribbon? She never tells him. Eventually they get married. She still won't tell him. Then they go through the years, and the whole entirety that they know each other, she doesn't tell him. And then one day she says to him, Albert, you can pull off my green ribbon now. And he says, okay. And he pulls the ribbon, and her head falls off, and she dies. And so that's a very shortened version of it. It is. Nikki says, I hope everybody read that creepy ass story if you weren't familiar with it. And so
that's on Edgar Allan Poe level. I mean, that's like, as someone who grew up in the same state as Stephen King.
The drawings with it, like the drawings. And so, and if you were not here at that time last September, I had to have my right thyroid removed, and it turned out that it was cancerous. That they got it in time, and so they had to go back right before Halloween and do the left side. And so right before that, if I remember right, our Halloween live stream was just before. It was the last podcast before my second surgery. So. And so I wore the green ribbon, and because Nikki was like, "This is the only." She's like, "You have to wear it because you have the neck. You have the thyroid scar. You've got to wear it." And so, unfortunately, most of our viewers did not know this story. So it was like an inside joke for me and Nikki, basically. So,
well, now everyone knows, and
yes. So now, hopefully,
well-informed watchers.
Yes. So please go look up. Nikki did peer pressure me into wearing it. We had to go find green ribbon.
I thought it looked awesome. And
that we had to go find like one that would be thick enough, and I found one that was really pretty, but it was like, because it was glittery, but it was gonna scratch the whole time, and I was like, can't wear that. Yeah. So like, we had to try out some ribbons. to make it happen. But we'll remind you closer to Halloween. I'm going to ask you. Maybe I will read it to you next time.
That would
Halloween
be
live stream. I'll read
so
it to you.
funny. I would love that. We do a story portion, so we may as well switch it up.
Right, we do. Yes, our Halloween live stream is fun. We make our own horror story. I pick 8 random wrestlers, and then we have little categories, and we make a murder mystery involving wrestlers. Yeah. We might have to change it up though this year, maybe. So maybe we will have story time with Sam.
I like it. I like it. I think we work. Fortunately, we have like 10 months to work on.
Apparently, I saw that May 1st, people were posting that we were halfway to Halloween.
Okay, that's fair.
That's like, listen,
I mean, being that Halloween is kind of more like my Christmas than Christmas is.
Yeah,
I actually
I have always been a huge Christmas fan. Like, Christmas is still my favorite holiday, but like Halloween is a very, very close number 2. Mm-hmm. And the last few years I've gotten really more into it and that time of year. So I was like, and again, in the year 2025 and everything that's happening, if it makes you happy to celebrate being halfway to Halloween, then go for it.
Truly. I totally agree.
Go
Whatever brings you joy.
Yes, because actually, as Brian says, happy Sunday. Thank you, Brian, for being here. It's been a rough week for news, but I hope you have a great show. Thank you, truly, Brian. Appreciate that.
This is a wild timeline to be living in. So we need our pro wrestling and we need our pals and we need our fun stuff that makes us happy. Yes. And that's why we don't judge, whatever brings you joy and
as long as it's not harming you.
I gotta give a big shout out to a childhood hero who now has become a grown-up hero is the Bob Ross channel on the Samsung Plus TV.
Just watching that.
Getting us through the last 3 months, I think. Including, I think the dogs like Bob Ross. We like Bob Ross. Like, he has all the animals on there. He's got that SETI tone. He makes you think you can do anything. I'm like, this brother had it figured out.
He did.
Like, he's great. Wow. That's perfect background noise for like if you need something in the background, but not something that you have to overly focus on. And he's just got such a great way of talking.
Yeah, he was great. We were blessed to have Bob Ross. And I did blessed to have the Bob Ross channel. Yes, thankfully. Yes. I mean,
glad that happened. I have seen the documentary. That story's stupid, but it's such a capitalist story. But
the Bob Ross estate.
But I can look around that at
the Bob Ross himself. Mm-hmm. And the joy that he brought to people. We will celebrate that. But we will not we do not endorse going to buy Bob Ross merch because his family does not get it. The estate
If it says Bob Ross Inc. on it.
Yeah,
and it does not belong to somebody else, and you find it, you throw it away or set it on fire or pee on it or do all of the above or whatever.
On it.
Girl.
Yeah. Listen, do what you gotta do. Just make sure they don't get the money because
I do not like those are the worst stories.
Yeah, and I mean that reminds me. I mean, we talked about it on here before when we've gotten into our 80s, 90s nostalgia conversations about how like huge Lisa Frank fan. Then I found out how awful she is.
Yeah, that's a real.
Which surprise.
Evolving through the ages is a very difficult process as a human.
I mean, here we are with a look at the wrestling business. We grow up and find out. What we're going to talk about, and I guess I don't know if we want to segue right on into that story.
Well, we may as well get it out of the way because
so
as Mel as
Mel likes to say, sometimes on this show we have a shit sandwich, and we have our fun little opening. We get to the shit stuff, and then we get to the more fun stuff. So we send you out of here on a happy note, not too much on a bad one. Then, unfortunately, some other not great stuff happened on Friday that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
That's not fun, but considering that, that we do want to talk about it, we want to address it. And then before I move on, I'll get to Brad's comment. It said, Bob Ross, Mr. Rogers, Steve Irwin, the world could use them on TV. Where are the current generations of Star when we need them? Come back, LeVar Burton. Luckily, LeVar Burton is online. He's on social media. So There's
He
also,
still
I
does,
highly recommend Michael, Mychal. I can't remember his @ He's the one that he's the advocate for libraries. He is phenomenal. I would highly recommend following him. He definitely brings he's a big proponent of library joy and library kids and library adults for that. So, there are those, but yes, we do need those people.
It's the worst part, Brad, is that like this week where you look at the fact that they're cutting PBS and NPR, and that's where we saw those people. That's where I saw Bob Ross. That's where I saw Mr. Rogers. That's where Sesame Street was. Yep. I mean, that's Doctor Who, Romper Rooms, Great Space Coaster. I'm very old, but it's just, I mean, a lot of
even
public
like
television was an integral part of me, both as a supplemental educator and as just a child.
Right.
And then we listen to NPR a lot. So, I mean, Wait, Don't Tell Me is an American institution as far as I'm concerned. So,
fair enough. So, yes, if you can, support NPR and PBS.
And that's also the Armed Forces Radio Service. So, just saying.
Yeah, because Voice of America is a show that I work job and have been working with them for the last 4 or 5 years, and yes, so and they help with some of my day job stuff. So yes, that is unfortunate. Fortunately they have been given the go ahead to come back. I just don't know what the timeline is for that.
Just continues to be a whole bunch of people who have no idea how things work, and that's frustrating. So, but anyway, regardless of that,
yes, Lisa Frank's story is wild, and you should fall down that rabbit hole. Yeah, if you need something to do today or this week, want to fall down a rabbit hole.
Well, that's like Susan G. Komen. It's like go find out about those pink ribbons.
Okay.
Support the real cancer research. Anyway, let's choose. No, not this is the wrong shit. Let's do the right shit.
Yes,
get
Maria.
Back to the happy stuff.
We're definitely going to talk about those.
We're talking about
today,
that coming up. Maria,
but unfortunately, I have to bring it all the way back to Monday, and two stories kind of came out Monday. One involving Janelle Grant, a little bit small, mainly just an update on some of the things that they are doing. And then we also got an update on the Ring Boys lawsuit, which was a lot. I will go ahead and we'll tell you now. We'll give you a trigger warning. If you need to leave for a bit, that's perfectly fine. I don't know the exact time frame. Sometimes we'll say stay away for 20 minutes and then we'll talk about it for 45. So we will try. It's because it's a conversation we need to have. So if this is triggering for you in any way, please feel free to leave or fast forward. We completely understand. We don't want you to have to hear anything that's going to make you uncomfortable, because this is an uncomfortable story. But unfortunately, it's real life. And this is not something we have sugarcoated since we've been covering it, and we have no plans to do that. So first, I guess, before we get into the Ring Boys lawsuit, I will just give the quick Janelle update. So it came out Monday, and this is from BJ Bethel, and I did read over the information that's out there, but the Ring Boys lawsuit kind of took some precedence over what I was doing on my end. But luckily, BJ Bethel also stays up to date on all of this. So she filed an opposition motion in court against the request by Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis to stay or pause the discovery in the case. So they are the defendants, which would be Vince, WWE, and John Laurinaitis. They are trying to pause discovery in the case because they don't want more information coming to light. Basically, that can help. That could potentially help Janelle. They are trying to stop that. So they filed, as BJ says, McMahon, WWE, and Laurinaitis filed motions to stay discovery until they refiled motions to compel arbitration. Because they definitely want arbitration only. They want this. They don't want this going to a jury trial if they can help it, because then all kinds of things will come out, and then you have people who can testify on those things. So they want to go just to arbitration. The defendants filed the motions before the case was stayed in June last year at the request of prosecutors working with McMahon.
They're just copy pasting the same crap and refiling it. Is what
pretty much.
Doing.
And so this says lawyers for McMahon have said that the investigation has ended. Lawyers for Grant say that they believe that the criminal investigation is still ongoing. The PIO at SDNY refused to comment on this investigation earlier this year. So there are some motions. So Janelle's team is doing what they can to try to move this forward. They definitely, are trying. Janelle's team is trying to get this moved forward, because obviously the court of law can move really, really slow. And so they don't want people to forget about it. They don't want, you're seeing, because WWE is doing their PR thing. We're like, hey, we're selling, look at, WrestleMania. We sold that out 2 nights. We have acquired AAA in Mexico. We've done this, we've done that. We're on Netflix. We've done all of these things. And so Janelle's team is like, which again, we always talk about WWE says, look over here, not over here. That's their MO. And so Janelle's team is like, no, we're still here. We're not going away. They've got a new judge. So the case got a new judge a few months ago. And so that is definitely taking a bit longer, because there's a new judge that has to read over
to come up to speed
everything.
on 3 years of crap.
And then Janelle's team filed an amended lawsuit. That was the lawsuit that we read a few months ago that had even more information in there. And that's where we found out about the office that was built, and up again, they shared a wall with Paul Levesque's office. Like, all of that stuff is in the new amended lawsuit. So that lawsuit has to be approved for them to even move forward and do, the next steps and things like that. So that's kind of the update we have there. So they are trying their best to keep that
They're
going.
following the legal process as much as they can barely within the purview of the law. And judges, if it's a half decent judge, will get sick and tired of this at some point and push it down the line, because they're wasting taxpayers' time and money refiling things that it's at some point one of these judges needs to either say, yes, it's going to arbitration, or no, it's not, and shut up about it.
Yeah. And like I said, they've got the new judge, so she has to get caught up on everything, and on top of whatever her other cases are, like,
and all the new stuff. So she has to get caught up.
There's a lot.
There's
a lot going on there. Janelle's team has at least been trying to get a date on the calendar for them to move forward, but that has not happened yet, because the new judge is trying to go through everything along with her own. I'm sure there's other cases she's on. And then also, I don't know that it necessarily complicates anything with with events thing, but tomorrow jury selection starts for Sean Diddy Combs' trial. So that case is getting ready to move forward. The Weinstein case has restarted as well. The women have started testifying, have started the testifying portion. I think last week, or maybe it was even the end of the week before. But that is, so both the Weinstein and the Combs and cases are moving forward. So that may also, I don't know how much that will slow that down, because it is in SDNY in the Southern District. And so that may, I don't know if that's going to slow it down, because those two things are going on. So as we've said from the beginning, this is going to be a long drawn out process. This is going to take we're going to be talking about this for a very long time. So just wanted to update you with what we had. And then again, the Ring Boys lawsuit. So if you remember, just a quick recap, last October, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of 5 Ring Boys who say that they were sexually abused by the late Mel Phillips. Mel Phillips is a former ring announcer. Terry Garvin was also mentioned by some of the John Does in this case. And the lawsuit was very hard to read. They talked a lot about the abuse that they suffered. They say that the McMahons were aware, or at least should have been aware, of what was happening, because they were in plain sight, because they were working as ring boys, meaning they were setting up and taking apart the rings, doing other kinds of things. Vince McMahon was often on site because he was the de facto boss on site, even though his father still owned the company at that time and he was a commentator. He was still there. He always checked to make sure the ring, after they put the ring together, make sure it was sturdy enough and was going to be safe to use for the show. He was coming down and talking to Mel Phillips and various people who were down around the ring. So the boys were there. The boys say they were there, or now men, but they say at the time when they were in plain sight. And they say that the McMahons had a duty to make sure that they were cared for. while they were working for them, because they all say that they were paid cash for their services. So they were being paid, even though they were not technically employees. They were being paid for cash. They were being used multiple shows, I believe.
And they were underage.
They were underage. I believe every John Doe was taken over state lines to work and were abused over state lines. So in today, if this happened today, this would be enacting them, that would be involving the Mann Act, which is taking someone across state lines to abuse them or traffic them. So three more John Does have come forward. And with the way the lawsuit, from how I understand it, with the lawsuit, the defendants, which would be Vince and Linda McMahon, the WWE and TKO, because I'll get back to that in a second. They are allowed to know the identity of these John Does, but the public is not. And so in the lawsuit, they are John Doe. In this particular one, it's John Does 6, 7, and 8. So we are up to eight former Ring Boys total who have come forward and are part of this lawsuit. So this is an amended lawsuit to include these 3. And so this happened in October. Then the case was briefly stayed because the state of Maryland, the lawsuit was filed in Maryland. The state of Maryland was reviewing the Child Abuse Act of 2023 to make sure that it was constitutional, because that means that because it used to be that you could only file a lawsuit. You could only file a lawsuit 20 years past the age of 18. This new the 2023 act says that the statute of limitations is gone. You could be any age now to come forward, and you can also name entities like the Catholic Church. Was a big reason that this happened, was so that the Catholic Church itself could be named in lawsuits. So in this case, this means WWE can be named. And also they have named TKO because TKO is the owner of WWE. And so now they are, and that's how they are involved in this lawsuit. And so because that the court upheld that act, it has now allowed this case to move forward, which means that's how they were able to amend this lawsuit and add 3 more people. And so this information that we have here details allegations. And so I did tell Mel this briefly off air. I did write an article about this. I had some in real life things going on at the same time. And so I didn't get to fully finish it until Friday, but it has to, because of the subject matter, it has to be vetted from people above my editor. And so
the lawyers have to take a look at it.
Well, I don't know if it's lawyers, but with Daily
but
it's through fan side. They just have to make sure. They have to make sure everything is in there properly.
It's totally understandable. Most places have this now.
Right. So it is not. So that's why it is not published yet. I'm not sure when that will be, because again, I didn't get to submit it until late Friday evening. And then as I submitted it, then all the WWE releases were happening at the same time. So
huzzah. Because of course
I'm using the so Brandon Thurston with Post Wrestling is the one whose article I'm gonna use for today to help me, because they added on like 20 new pages to the lawsuit. And so the updated complaint brings new allegations of child sexual abuse against Phillips and the new allegation of child sexual abuse against Pat Patterson. Additionally, the plaintiff's attorneys raise issues that anticipate the legal defenses of the defendants relating to jurisdiction, duty of care, and corporate liability. So John Doe 6 says that he met Mel Phillips in around 1988 when he was only 11 or 12 years old. I believe this is the child that said that he met Mel Phillips at the back of an arena where WWE was holding a show at the time. He didn't have any money, so he asked if there was any work that he could do to earn a ticket, and Mel Phillips told him yes and brought him into the building and had him as part doing some ring boy duties, and that's where this started. So this article, the article from goes on to say that after a WWF house show on July 14th, 1989, he was told he needed to stay in Patterson's hotel room while other underage boys stayed in, so he stayed in Patterson's room while the others stayed in Phillips's room. In Patterson's room, Doe 6 alleges that he was given alcohol. Patterson put pornography on the TV, and then he forced Doe to perform oral sex and vice versa. And then also in a separate allegation, this is a new person has been reported as far as being an incident involving, not necessarily accused of, anything further than this incident, but Hall of Famer Coco Beware was present along with, they were in a WWE dressing room, or WWF at the time, dressing room. There were other witnesses present, including Mel Phillips, Pat Patterson, at the time, Tony Chimmel was one of them. You may know him as a ring announcer at the time. He was also a ring crew member, and there was a referee named Danny Davis who was there. And in front of according to the lawsuit, in front of everyone else in the room, Coco Beware told John Doe 6 to get against the wall, pushed John Doe's head against the wall, and patted him down, and then grabbed his crotch. He says that Tony Chimmel said something like, don't do that, just let him go. And then Chimmel later told John Doe 6 that he should not be on the ring crew and that he should run away. Post did say that they have a phone number believed to be Coco Beware's phone number, his real name is James Ware. And they requested a comment, but at the time that this article was published, they had not gotten a response. And from as far as I've seen from Post and Brandon Thurston, they still have not received a response from him. And then also, the lawsuit also identifies another potential witness, including former community relations director Sue Atchison, who worked for WWE for decades. And she left last year, and they believe that she may have been a witness to certain things as well. John Doe 6 alleges that at another event, he was wrestling in a ring they were kind of just like horsing around after they put the ring together. And the boy he was playing with was Shane McMahon. And Shane accidentally suffered an arm injury, and the incident was witnessed, according to John Doe 6, by Atchison, Mike Chioda, and Tony Schimmel, or Tony Kimmel. So I think that story was kind of to present the fact that a McMahon was there. He was injured. This is the kid he played with. The McMahons knew who he was, right, because he was playing with their child, and then their child accidentally got injured. I believe that's why the story was included in the lawsuit, is because they're trying to show, trying to show that the McMahons knew who this child was, and if they were allowing their own son to play with this child, who they were roughly the same age at this time. Let's see here. So there's some more. There's John Doe 6, unfortunately, had quite a few allegations in his, so there's a bit from him. This one was one of the more interesting things, besides the Coco Beware story. Is that he says that he traveled with Mel Phillips to 10 WWE events between 1988 and 1992, including WrestleMania 5 in Atlantic City on April 2nd, 1989. The amended complaint involves photographs that show him in the audience during the main event between Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. In the lawsuit that I read, there are 3 images that they have included, and the face of John Doe and other plaintiffs are redacted in the images to protect their identities. But what's interesting is to show the proximity of how close they are. John Doe 6 was 2 rows back from Donald Trump. Donald Trump was sitting front row at that WrestleMania, and this child was 2 rows away, showing that Mel Phillips was this is how he was using these kids to groom them, was, I can get you really close to the ring for WrestleMania for you to watch Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. If you come do these things, this is what I will do for you. And so they're establishing ways of how he was grooming them and the tactics he was using to do so. And getting third row seats to WrestleMania is definitely a way to
predatory.
Yes, and to bribe these children. So let's see here. Okay, let me move down a little bit more. So then John Doe 7 says that he was about 14 or 15 when he met Mel Phillips in 1974. He was also a ring boy. He alleges that he was sexually abused by Phillips while he was working at WWF events, including at hotel rooms in Baltimore, Maryland. Again, this is where the lawsuit is filed. And he was given alcohol by Phillips. The lawsuit states in detail how Doe 7 was allegedly sexually abused by Phillips, which includes allegations of forced oral sex. Alleging that at least a portion of these abuses happened in Maryland is key to the plaintiff's case. And most other, Brandon Thurston goes on to say, in most other jurisdictions, statutes of limitations would make these allegations difficult or impossible to pursue. Maryland established a new law in recent years, the Child Victims Act of 2023, which we were just discussing. It says each of the 5 initial plaintiffs allegedly were abused by Phillips when they were minors. The lawsuit also acknowledges that Vince McMahon was a commentator at the time Doe 7 was allegedly abused. Vincent J. McMahon was still in charge at the time. Nonetheless, the younger McMahon still had leadership responsibilities, and he was giving the ring crew duties that they had to do, and things like that. Doe 7 also says that he was abused from Phillips away from WWF events, including the Philadelphia Police Athletic League and also a church in West Philadelphia. And that Mel Phillips was also recording the abuse with a video camera. One of the original John Does in the original lawsuit also mentions a video camera because they were saying at the time, most individuals did not own video cameras because they were very expensive at that time. So for him to be able to afford one and to have them, and then he was using them to tape these acts. And apparently from what John Doe 7 did, says he videotaped the abuse in a church. Which, just let that sink in. Let's see. And then John Doe 8, who is the third new plaintiff in this amended lawsuit, says that he was about 15 years old in 1982 in Baltimore. He was working concessions at the Baltimore Civic Center when he was approached by Mel Phillips. So he was working another job. Mel Phillips sought him out and asked him if he would like to meet some wrestlers by helping setting up and taking down the ring. So that's how, so again, using proximity to wrestlers to get them to work for him. I believe John Doe 8 also was selling pictures of wrestlers in the lobby. And this says here that Doe 8 said Phillips asked him to come to WWF show on or around March the 13th, 1982. At that event, Doe 8 and another ring boy were allegedly given marijuana. And before another event, also in Baltimore, in April of 1982, Doe 8 alleges that Phillips sexually abused him and another underage ring boy at a hotel. In Phillips' room, Doe 8 alleges that the ring announcer told the boys to get undressed while wearing only underwear. Phillips allegedly put the boys' feet on his penis to compare sizes. Phillips was aroused. The boys were allegedly offered cocaine and pills. They also say that they were offered steroids by either Phillips or Patterson and told that if they wanted to be wrestlers, they needed to be bigger. Doe 8 says that he was paid cash for working at the event. In addition to adding new plaintiffs, the updated filing also states each plaintiff received some form of compensation for their services, whether cash payments, food, or lodging. And they also, I believe it is Doe 7, said that when he stayed at hotels with Phillips and or Patterson, he would have breakfast either there or nearby the hotels. Other wrestlers would be around. Vince McMahon would be around when they were having breakfast, and again showing proof that Vince McMahon
This was a well-known fact amongst
Linda,
the people
Linda
there.
also, there's in one incident, I believe it's John Doe 7 says that he was in a dressing room with Phillips, Garvin, and Patterson and Vince McMahon. Linda walked in, made eye contact with the boy, and made Vince leave with her. It's not known what happened after that, but then that is again showing that Linda McMahon also was aware, as was alleged in the first lawsuit, that she was aware of things that were happening, or at least aware that Phillips was around underage children often. And it has been said in the first lawsuit, one of the quotes is that, she said that he had an unnatural, I can't remember the exact words, but he was unnaturally around children, and when they fired him for 6 weeks, Linda McMahon is the one who brought him back to the company and told him he could come back on the condition that he stay away from young boys.
That's it. That was all she did, was say, just stay away. And that was never enforced.
Right.
From the lawsuit.
Yeah. And then this article does mention here that there was a former ring boy named Gerard Millette. His comments have been added to the complaint. He defends Phillips and said he doesn't believe he abused the plaintiffs. However, the plaintiff's attorney cite his statements to purportedly support their allegation. Millette's comments noting that there was a wide knowledge of Phillips' foot fetish and that there were often kids around are that was also mentioned in the lawsuit, again, to help their side of things. So that is where that is at as far as, it has been. So there is now an amended lawsuit as of even as far as today, as far as I have seen, there has not been a response from Vic McMahon's TKO or WWE at this point. And last year when the lawsuit was filed, Janelle Grant's lawyer Ann Callis also released a statement in support of the Ring Boys. And so I did reach out to her team, but it was Friday, and obviously there's a lot of things going on. Hopefully, if I get a response, I will definitely post that to my social media, and I'll update my article with that as well. And I did reach out to the team of I have a contact at the law firm that is handling the Ring Boys lawsuit, and I have also asked them for a statement as well, as they released one to me the last time around. So if I get those comments, hopefully tomorrow, I will definitely post those. So that's what we have right now. We don't know. I don't know what happens next, other than I guess the amended lawsuit has to be accepted. And then I assume the defendants will definitely, try to stop it or, file some sort of a motion as well. So we will keep you updated on that. But again, it's really tough information to listen to. And again, we don't like talking about it, but I don't want to sweep it under the rug either. It is very...
Particularly since the department, this is the one that this names Linda McMahon. That person is in a position of power, extreme power over our nation's youth.
Right.
This involves youth being abused. It's a very important story to be telling. And I think, there's silver linings, but the idea that more people have stepped forward on the suit to make it, because the more witnesses you have, the more viable the case becomes, and the more reality you have of these people potentially getting their day in court. And here's hoping, because the fact that I don't want to say good, because it kind of misrepresents it, but the idea is that the fact that they're filing an amended lawsuit with more witnesses and more victims that corroborate the fact that this behavior is going on increases the chance that the McMahons, Linda McMahon, the company, might have to pay a penance someday for their shit behaviors.
Right. And it's on record, and these 8 people are coming forward and being brave and talking about the abuse that they suffered. Because we've talked about that a lot with the Janelle case, about how we know there's other people, but it is really hard to come forward to publicly talk about what has happened to you, especially when a lot of people don't want to believe you as it is, and then they don't want to believe you, but because it involves in this case, it involves WWE, it involves Vince McMahon, it involves Linda McMahon. These are people who have been in our living rooms for decades, and they don't want to believe that these things could happen, or that they could do these things, or these things could happen under their watch. And so you have that extra layer of people who automatically don't believe you because of the people that it involves. And so I applaud these 8 individuals for having the courage to come forward, and I am sure that there are more, and for whatever reason they have not come forward, and they are just as valid as these 8, regardless if they ever come forward or not. And the same goes for the women that have, and men for that matter, who have been abused, who of the way that they have been treated by Vince McMahon for decades, and they have not come forward for whatever reason. They are just as valid as Janelle Grant, and the women who have come forward and had, they're dealing with the NDAs, and if these NDAs, if they can get past them, then maybe they can speak about what happened to them. But it's a very difficult situation. But we will continue to cover it as long as there's information, because it needs to be talked about. I don't want us, just because we are a fan of the sport does not mean that we are going to look the other way. Because it's not fair to the people that suffered those horrendous things. And unfortunately, as Mel and I have talked about, this is everywhere and every facet of our lives. And it is an unfortunate thing. And we do try to find balance and, and still loving the thing that we love, but also talking about
holding it accountable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So I think that is where we will leave that discussion. Of course, if there are any updates, if we get any statements, we'll definitely talk about those. And then also in less horrific news, but also not great news.
Not awesome.
On Friday, actually, I'll back it up. On Thursday, WWE released, I believe it was 10 people in the behind the scenes office type of things. One of them was a woman writer whose name just left my brain. Apparently, she was the only woman writer left, and she's gone. And if that is the case, there are 0 women on WWE's writing staff. If that is correct information. Again, I don't have that confirmed. That's just what I have heard.
Yikes.
And I also wonder, because WWE has released the trailer of the show that's coming this summer that takes you behind the scenes of the writing room, and in the clip it appeared to be all white men who are writers for WWE.
Shocking.
Would not be a shock. So I'm wondering how much the woman who was released, how much she's in that documentary, if they scrub her or they just leave her in there. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So generally, when that starts happening, we know that releases of wrestlers are coming, because they almost always release office/staff people in the
office
days
people
before,
first, and then
talent comes. And so Friday night, right before SmackDown, names started coming out. And some of them were some kind of surprising names, some not so much. Regardless, unless you are named and speaking out, it is unfortunate when anybody loses their job. And so the big names that came from the main roster are Braun Strowman, Shayna Baszler, Dakota Kai, Kaden Carter, and Katana Chance. But then we got some kind of big names in NXT that were released as well. Cora Jade, I think, probably was one of the bigger surprises. Actually, I would say Jakara Jackson was probably the biggest surprise from the NXT side of things. She was one half of Meta 4 with Lash Legend. They were one of the few women's tag teams in the company. They had wrestled for the tag team titles a few times on both NXT and on the main roster. And it appeared that a few months ago that they were getting called up, and then that didn't happen. But Jakara Jackson is somebody that a lot of people had really had a lot of good things to say. It seemed like she was going to be somebody that was a big deal. And apparently on Tuesday, they broke up Metaphor, which because there's 4 of them. It's and I believe actually all of Metaphor besides Lash Legend, I think everybody but Lash Legend was released from Metaphor, if I remember correctly. I could be mistaken, but it was 2 women and 2 men. They were broken up on Tuesday. So it seems that obviously, I guess Shawn Michaels maybe knew because several people who were released were in storylines, active NXT storylines. This is not the first time this has happened. There were some releases. They just did releases about 3 months ago. Some of them were involved in storylines, and it happened. I can't remember. It's basically, it appears that this is now happening quarterly. Like WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, they've always done budget cuts.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a surprise because they typically do them. But now somebody was talking about how often they've done the last 3. And now it appears that they are going to be doing quarterly releases maybe. And a lot of that is because of, TKO and they own, because Endeavor owns UFC. This is kind of a lot of the things that WWE now is doing is what UFC does. They kind of are mirroring each other in how they do things. And so, hold on, let me switch up. My screen crashed here. Let me pull that back up and we talk. So Cora, I think Cora and Jakara were probably the bigger surprises, but they also released Gigi Dolan, Ora Mensa, Riley Osborne, Eddie Thorpe, who is a friend, who was the former Carl Fredericks, Javier Bernal, all 3 members of Gallus, and then Danny Palmer was also released. And then it was official yesterday that Shotzi was not having her contract renewed. She was informed of this, apparently cut a promo earlier in the week that was released that heavily hinted at that fact. And so some of these releases may just be there. I think they're still trying to find out who was just contracts were expiring and they weren't going to release, they weren't going to renew them. And then who was just outright released. It appears that most people have, depending on where they were on the brand, they either have a 30-day or 90-day non-compete. And the non-compete from the last one is up on May the 7th because Cedric Alexander will be available. Right. And so that's the reason I know that, because I was hoping he was going to be in BOSJ because BOSJ starts 3 days after that. And fortunately he is not, but he's doing some indie shows starting next week. And so that show, that 90 days ends in 3 days. And here's the next wave. So maybe when the next 90 days hits, maybe more releases, who knows? But it is unfortunate again, unless you were named in Speaking Out, then I don't feel so bad for you. But regardless, and so now there's I saw the thing that Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer that some of these were done because of age, which is not a surprise. They've done that before. That's how Anthony Henry wound up in AEW. He was in WWE for 6 months, and he was one of the people they cut because they thought he was too old.
Wow.
So they released him. But a lot of these, it shows you that they think that the NIL, that they're using these NIL athletes. Danny Palmer is an NIL athlete, that they think that these athletes are just going to be able to easily transfer into women's or into wrestling in general, and that they can, just cut these veterans because they've got another stash to go through.
Sure.
And as one of my friends said, it's like an assembly line.
It's always been like that.
And apparently, Robert says that there are 0 LGBTQ talent in WWE. Yeah, apparently that's what I heard as well, that with some of the talent they cut on Friday, that meant that
there's a lot of things about those stories that were coming out where it was like, now they're all white dudes that are on the writers team. Now there's no this now. And then TNA decided that they're not going to be doing weapons and
they're not doing blading anymore, but they are shopping TNA for a TV and or streaming deal. Apparently there are
I don't know. The
There-
first thing I thought of, and I tweeted this, was WWE presents TNA.
Yeah, I mean that definitely certainly has something with it, but
especially because they have the deals with them with some of their wrestlers.
But they do also now have. There are multiple reports that they are in talks with 4 or 5 different networks and or streaming, and so they are trying to clean that up a little bit, because apparently the dog collar match that just happened was really between Steve Maclin and I believe it was Eric Young. I think it was Eric Young. That was really bloody. And then there was also, I saw clips of the match between Sami Callihan and Mance Warner, was super bloody. It was, I mean, not surprising considering the 2 men who were involved, because if you've seen a Mance Warner match, 99% of the time you're gonna see a lot of blood. And so he and Sami are there are people who definitely rely on blood a lot. In that match, Sami stapled Mance's tongue to a door. So, which is not the first. That's not the first time Mance's tongue has been stapled to something. His tongue has been stapled to something several times in other matches in other places. Right. So, so I think those 2 of those matches, they're like, no, we're trying to get a TV deal. We have to stop the blading at this point. Also, could it have been a directive from WWE? Would not surprise me if it's a little bit of both. But yeah, so this talent, I assume that WWE thinks that TNA is going to pick up some of this talent, and then perhaps through their deal, they'll just wind up in, on NXT television again. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But also, a lot of those cuts were women, and we've talked about the fact that WWE's first of all, just their mid-card in general, they struggle to book. But particularly their brand new IC women's title, their US title, it's been, that story's told a little bit better. They do have a new champion in Zelina Vega. She beat Chelsea Green for the title. So they do have a little bit more of a story and more going on, people trying to actually, want that title. Whereas IC title, like, it was basically Ivy Nile just over and over again, her and Dakota Kai, who was released. They kind of were in it. And then there's the women's tag titles that, again, have been booked horribly. And now you just released one half of an actual women's tag team. You released a women's tag team in Kaden and Katana, and then just women in general that you could use to, like Gigi Dolan, to put, to help them to be a team to contend for the title. So, and Evolution 2 was never officially announced. It was rumored by Voices of Wrestling. If it was happening, it probably would have been announced by now, because it's in May and it was allegedly going to be in June. But I think this is a pretty clear indication that Evolution 2 is not happening, because I guess you can make the argument that the only women who probably would have been out of these that were released would probably have been Shayna and Dakota. Maybe Jakara would have potentially been in it, but I just think that goes to show you what they think about women's wrestling, which is it's on their checklist. They don't care. It's all
about filling out boxes for the government.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and of course, there's been a lot of discussion does AEW pick up any of these people? And if they do, who? I see Robert wants Dakota and AEW. Apparently when she was released the last time, Dakota was in talks with AEW, but they don't know how far those talks have even progressed. She was also in talks with Stardom. Then WWE called her back and she went back there. Dakota may be somebody that's on their radar, but out of those names that are released, maybe Jakara, because Jakara was somebody that a lot of people thought highly of. So perhaps Jakara, but I don't know that they're going to bring in anybody from this group. And where do you put them especially when you just have Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight are 2 of your most recent signings, and they're on TV every week, like that, literally since they have been there. they've been there every week. And Kevin is getting ready to go to BOSJ, so he's going to be gone for a few weeks. But they've got Speedball in the meantime, and Nick Wayne will
some Speedball on Wednesday. I'm pretty sick. They didn't announce a lot of matches for Wednesday, but they did announce that what is it, a 6-man?
Yes,
Speedball?
I think it's the trios. It's what is the Young Bucks and Ricochet versus Speedball, Swerve, and
is it Kevin Knight?
I'm blanking on the third.
Is it Kevin? It's not Kevin Knight though.
I don't
think it is either.
I don't know, because I think Kevin, I don't know if he wrestled before he goes to Japan, because I don't know how soon he has to leave.
Oh, that's right.
BOSJ starts on the 10th.
That's right. So, they're going to be breaking them up soon. I can't remember. It's not that. It's like, I can't remember. They only. But I just saw that Speedball was in there.
They only showed the graphic like 48 times last night.
I know, right?
I would remember.
I'm only going to see the thing.
I should have remembered, because I was like, God, Collision's on Thursday. I was like, you're going to cut it. Don't run late. You're going to cut into my Grey's Anatomy time. And then I was like, oh, wait, Mel, I should have known that, because it's this week it's this coming week.
Is Collision live on Thursday also? Oh, yes. Okay. That's awesome.
A live show. Yeah, it's not a I thought originally it was a pre-tape, but I believe Backlash is Sunday. Backlash for WWE, I believe, is Saturday. So they're not running. I mean, perhaps there's some other, because I don't think basketball. I don't think it's basketball. That's why it was last night was on TBS, is because they and the NBA, they thought something there are a couple Game 7 scenarios, so they just moved it to the other side. Neither one ended up going to Game 7, so it could have been on TNT, but they didn't want to, so they just left it where it was at. But yes, next Thursday, Collision will be live.
That's fantastic. Okay. Because I thought it was going to be a taping. That's dope.
Both shows that you will be at will be live. There's some ROH. I'm sure there'll be some ROH stuff too. And last week, because you might, depending on what they're doing, like last week's episode had Mina Shirakawa was on it, so we might get that. And then yes, Jermaine, like Jermaine says, Tekla is apparently on her way to AEW as well. And yeah, Jermaine says the same thing, that according to Meltzer, he believes Dakota Kai might go to AEW, and that TNA will sign a big chunk of the releases, which I would not be surprised. I was talking to a friend last night, and we were saying that we would like to see, because I feel like Shotzi regressed in WWE, because she was not built for that system. Because when she was on the Indies, she was awesome. She was amazing.
We met her. She was great.
So I would really just love to see her do an indie run and just like get back to who Shotzi Blackheart is. Hope she gets to take her tank with her, and that she does some stuff. And then maybe she does a TNA stint at some point if she wants it. But then like Mustafa is somebody, even you can go with Matt Cardona. Those are two people who do all kinds of indies everywhere, but then they do get some TV stuff with TNA and stuff like that. And I believe Matt Cardona was doing MLW for a little bit as well. I've heard MLW is interested in several of the women who have been released.
Shotzi should go do Maple Leaf so she can work with Scott D'Amore.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Like, and I can.
They actually put emphasis on their. I mean, they just started with their women's belt during that tournament, but he is an emphasis on women's wrestling bookers. So
wow, somebody made the comment, they're like, wow, only if TNA had a woman who worked in the back who could help with all these women who were released. Talking about Kim.
If only
that. And so I see, but yeah, I would love to see Shotzi just go back to the indies and kind of just regain who she was before, because I think she's somebody that could do I think that she has a lot left that she could do. And so, but it'll be really interesting. I hope, except for the Gallus, because they were in Speaking Out. I hope everybody lands on their feet and they do well. Maybe Braun will go control his narrative somewhere again.
I don't know why they picked him back up in the first.
Yeah, I don't either. And they had been using him like fairly, like he wasn't clearly like not a title picture or anything, but they had been using him on on a fairly regular basis, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, I was not surprised though. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Nikki and I were talking about that. Shayna would be great doing Bloodsport.
Didn't she just do one? She did really well. Yeah, she did the one this year, and she did a pretty good job. So
she's one of Josh Barnett trained her.
Oh,
Is
perfect.
one of the
There you
people that
go.
trained her. Yeah, so she could certainly do that. She could do that type of stuff. You know, I mean, maybe, you know, you could see her in Maple Leaf as well. There, you know, there's, so I think a lot, if she was doing that type of wrestling, I think she'd be really good. Then we have a couple of comments here that Robert says that he loves AEW, but they need to do a few releases. They did have releases. They did their first set of releases last year, and ended up, that's how they released Anthony Henry when he was injured, and people were like, apparently people within the company were like, what are you doing? They brought Anthony back, and then he got injured again, unfortunately. This time in an AEW ring when he was wrestling Gabe Kidd, or an ROH ring, technically it was an ROH match, and he was wrestling Gabe Kidd and was injured. But I believe he has been, and then he had to have a second surgery a few weeks ago. I think he has been cleared. JD Drake, I believe, has also not cleared, but cleared as into resume training, is what I mean. And I believe JD Drake has also been cleared to resume training. Nick Camarado was on.
Yeah, I saw that.
Was on TV in a 6-man. That was his first match since having surgery last year. He was reportedly not having his contract renewed, but apparently, I'm wondering if they just restructured it, perhaps. The same thing happened with Abaddon as well, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Brad says AEW should stay away from almost every single release talent. They have enough of their own under contract that don't get time as it is, which is an argument for the women's division as well. I saw that argument that the women, they already have women who are not being used. They don't need to add to it.
I kind of agree. I tend to agree with Brad on that. I mean, I obviously want people to have jobs, but I don't think that there's any there's nobody in this group of releases, unfortunately, that I feel like Tony needs to have on the roster.
The 90 days for the last set is almost through.
Almost up. And Double or Nothing's coming up.
There are lots of factors
that
will lead to this, but there is potential that if they're bringing anybody in, it's going to be Cedric Alexander to rejoin the Hurt Syndicate.
The Hurt Syndicate. Probably, yeah. I mean, but that would be
there's other underlying factors why that may not happen, but that
would seem like a Double or Nothing deal, because he always does like some huge thing on Double Nothing.
Right. That's what we said too, and that's kind of what I thought was that Bobby Lashley was, and I think I mentioned this on last week's episode, that Bobby Lashley was just going to keep saying no until Cedric got there. if that's what they're doing, of course, we don't know for sure. If
that could totally be a look,
and they could do it at Double or Nothing. He's got some things booked before and after.
Plus, it's in a new location for the first time, so they might want to do something fun with it.
That's true.
Since
that is true. But Double or Nothing is where that's where John Moxley debuted, and AEW was at Double or Nothing. And so, and since then, they've typically done
that size,
a big, a big surprise typically. So I would assume, and of course, maybe that's where Tekla, maybe they're a big surprise. Maybe that's where Tekla comes. I mean, they could do, maybe that's what it is. Let's see. I don't want to say, why do people have a job? I think that's not an appropriate thing to do about why some people have jobs when other people will get released. And that's obviously a question for, I assume it has to do with with salary. I assume some people are getting paid more than others, and that is a factor in why, because I believe it was actually Brandon Thurston had a comment. Let me see because I'm still on his page. Let me see if I can actually know that's on BJ's page. Because Brandon Thurston had a comment on why, even though they are making a lot of money and selling out shows, like why they are still releasing people. And he said, as hot as WWF and the UFC are, TKO was nearly profitable via their net income last year, with Endeavor's UFC purchase debt and antitrust settlement taking the margin down. Regardless of that, shareholder shareholder value is society's highest priority, so perceived in quotations, in parentheses, efficiency will always come first. So cuts are always going to happen in WWE.
It has to do with it's keeping the shareholders happy. They need to make sure that and the quickest way to make shareholders happy is because payroll is one of your most expensive output pieces when you're doing business.
Right.
It can be more expensive to pay employees than it can to own a building.
Right.
So the quickest way to make your shareholders happy is to make staff cuts.
Because again, which is why they do office cuts. Generally, office cuts come, even if it's 5 or 10 people.
Yep,
that's still a chunk of.
It'll still bounce the stock up, which they need, especially in this market that is a freaking roller coaster from hour to hour.
Because even when they were doing, because I've been covering WWE cuts since the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, they were still cutting. They were cutting people during a global pandemic.
They didn't care. Business as usual.
But they were cutting, and that's what they did every single time. Office people first.
Pattern.
Then it was talent.
Even so now, Sam, your just antenna go up there. It's like, oh, but secretary got cut. Oh, it could be any day now that talent's getting cut.
I didn't. When they made the cuts Thursday, I didn't hear about it, but I heard on Friday. I had heard about the female writer that had been cut, and I was like,
and you were like, talent.
I was like, yeah, and what I wanted to say, it was even
a Friday afternoon news dump.
It was because it was
right at the end of the day.
Which even I know he doesn't care, but I screenshot it. Releases were coming out. Triple H is literally retweeting SmackDown, like the things that had been announced for SmackDown. There were matches. He was retweeting them as employees were being cut.
Of course he was.
Not a surprise, but just the audacity.
Mister, I didn't read the lawsuit, was over there acting like he didn't know what was going on. You don't say.
But then it was fun. Then also, I know it was the setup because they were going to announce a match for SmackDown. But then as cuts are coming, before Triple H starts retweeting stuff, Nick Aldis tweets, "Welcome to SmackDown, Fraxium." Because Fraxium ended up having a match. They were the second match of the night. They wrestled. But it was just like, read the room. Like people are literally being fired as you are welcoming 2 new talents to SmackDown.
I mean,
just
WWE is nothing. No matter who's
in
charge, even with the air quotes, they never cease their consistency. If you want some consistency, if you want to be sure, spot on, even I started to feel like Friday. I was like, I had a bad, and then I was like, and I saw those releases. I was like, I knew it. There was weird buzz on the timeline for some reason. I don't know. I just got that feeling. And I was like, as soon as I saw the releases, I was like, why did I feel like something was coming today?
Yeah, Slack was going off as I'm like, because I was just finishing up, like I was rereading my article before I submitted it, and I was like, why is Slack going off so much? They must be having a conversation about something. So I was like, I'll look at it in a minute. Sent the article, and I go look, and Sean Ross Sapp is their tweets of releases.
I actually saw you tweet about it first. Funny enough, because you tweeted what I was thinking, which was, what? We just had the record-breakingest WrestleMania? Let's fire people. And I was like...
And I told Nikki, and then I was telling Nikki about this. I was like, I know it's obviously not in relation to the other, but because the timing last year, they did a bunch of releases right around the time they signed Jade. And I was like, man, that's just not a good look. Like, you bring in Jade. She's clearly, she's not making, Becky Lynch money, but I'm sure she's making decent money.
More than those
and
others.
Then so I was thinking about it. I was like, I hope if Jeff Cobb is coming. Jeff Cobb says he's retired, is what he said on Twitter last week.
I know. He's wrestling retired.
If he is coming to WWE, I was like, I hope it's not next week, right on the tail of all these releases. I hope it. And again, it would not be anything related to Jeff Cobb. But just the perception is not the greatest look when you are.
But they don't care. That's the thing. And they're they are the cold-hearted, profiteering, standard. The thing about, when I'm reading economics books, the thing I find about them that's hardest is I have sympathy for my fellow human beings. And those books are not they're not written for that. They're numbers and theories and all that stuff. So in my head, I'm like, and unemployment was at 98%. And I'm like, holy crap, what were the people thinking? And the book is like, it didn't matter because the book is telling me unemployment stats and labor stats and all these things because I'm not reading a book that gives a crap about people. I'm reading an economics book. And that's what this is. This is economics. It doesn't, and WWE, like, how many times do they have to tell you? How many times do they have to collectively give you the finger as a fan, as a culture, as a group, as a wrestler before you go? Like, I'm not shocked in any way when this stuff happens anymore. It's like, well, that tracks, and the guy in charge is no different than the guy in charge before because the guy in charge before trained the guy in charge now.
Yes, which is what I kept saying. And people were like, oh, when Triple H was going to be here, they're like, things are going to change. They're going to be so different. No. Well, the bar was on the floor. So, like, like the bar was on the floor. Like, literally all Paul Levesque had to do.
You had to be above slime.
All he had to do was step over it and pick it up.
You had to be above slime on the floor.
Yeah, like, it was just like,
like
of course he's doing great because he's like, of course he's doing great because he's doing the bare minimum, which was even more than what they were doing before. Like,
it's so gross.
Now we see, and now we're in this.
Chances they take in like situations like, I mean, they had a like, pardon my expression, but a suck Mr. Levesque's you know what fest over WrestleMania weekend, and then all these things continue to happen. The same guy who says he doesn't like read lawsuits, they're still trying to get it to arbitration when most of these judges seem pretty obviously not interested in arbitrating. They're, like I said earlier, they're copy pasting the same. Their legal team is just copy pasting the same statement. This is ridiculous. This is an accounting error. We want to go to arbitration. Well, this is them. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if they still threw a women's evolution, just a new one, Evolution 2.0, just to have an even bigger look over here.
Right.
Hey, happy summer, look way over here. We really do like chicks, even though we mostly just released all the rest of the ones we had.
And the last time we had an evolution was basically to make Ronda Rousey think we gave a crap about and we
so
were
that she could show up.
That was for her, not for y'all.
And the worst part of that, still for me, as someone who was watching Becky still scrape and claw her way up to the top and I'm not allowing herself to be cut out of that, and still having Charlotte inserted into the main event.
Right. Well, even still, that I don't.
I mean, I know it was a big turning point and it wouldn't have happened, and that's an indictment on the WWE in and of itself.
Right.
Is that it took some way outsider who didn't come along until way longer. And I mean, even Dana White, his whole stance for years was no one would ever want to watch women fight.
Right.
So don't count him out of the He-Man Women Haters Club either.
No. And he got booed.
It's like he's on film beating his wife up. I mean.
Right.
These are not bastions of. But yeah, it just, I hate it because it continues to be just like with the lawsuits and everything else. It's like the first thing anyone says to you when you say you're a wrestling fan is, like, WWE, and you're like, no, not like them. Gross. But that's the reality.
Oh, no, for sure. It definitely is.
And of course, just like with always, we all started on, if we're from North America or the West, most likely, that's what we had. It's just so annoying.
It is. And David mentions this as well, because I did mention MLW being interested in a bunch of women, but there is NWA, especially because Natty is getting ready to go wrestle Kenzie Page during the Crockett Cup. So that's definitely a place like I could see
Canadian wrestling coming back right now.
Yeah. So I mean, Vince McMahon, apparently Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan are starting a wrestling promotion. So I don't know, maybe they'll sign Braun Strowman. They announced it on, what was that, Thursday? They're doing some, there's like no details. There's no details other than they're working with some dude, Izzy something or other. I think he's an MMA guy. I don't know who he is because that's not, I don't care about MMA. That's not my thing.
They call it trash.
It's like it's like real American wrestling or some bullshit.
No, I think it should be called garbage pro wrestling.
Yeah, so something like that. So there's them. Maybe that's where Braun Strowman winds up. And
you know what? How about that's perfect? All the racists and sexists and misogynists and
well, that's what control your narrative was, and we saw how that turned out. But again, they didn't have Hulk Hogan, so maybe that was their whole problem, is they didn't have Hulk Hogan.
And Eric Terry will put him over. Don't worry. That's what we need to get you over the top.
They didn't have Terry and Eric, so maybe that's what will happen. Maybe he can control his. He can control his narrative over there.
Plus, they have so many butt boys that are out there just loving on them for no reason.
Yeah. Eric, Robert asked what happened to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I think they just basically were taking time away. I know the venue they were using, they couldn't use it anymore. I don't remember if they're done or just taking a hiatus type of deal.
I thought that it was partially the venue. It was a combination of Ultimo Dragon and the people that he was working with not getting along so much anymore. And then COVID was like the final straw.
Yeah, there was some.
I think it was a long period. And
that's what it was. That's right. Super Dragon's significant other was very, very sick, so he shut PWG.
That's it.
They were going to. He wanted to focus clearly on that.
And I think because even Dave mentions it here and there, because there's like no plans to come back right now. It's
right
to the best of.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad. Always there for us.
Yeah. I knew somebody in the comments would know. I was like, wait a minute, it's leaving my brain.
I couldn't remember. I knew it was something along those lines. It was like something. I remembered them having to like throw in the towel for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Robert says that they should do a brand split. I don't think they're going to. It's not going to give more opportunities. The women, they are not going to do a brand split. I don't think they're going to do that. I would like if that were how we would get more women, then I would be for it. But I don't think that that's going to happen.
I think you're more likely to see a AAA invasion and the WCW version of that situation.
But it almost seemed I have had my reservations about what women's tag team titles. I talk about this at least once a month, it seems like. That the only reason I am against them is because we just got to a point where we can book the women's division the way that we are, and women are still not getting booked. So yes, you could make the argument that this would give these women something to do, which fair. But the way they currently book women, especially on Dynamite, it's normally once a quarter they do 2 women's matches on Dynamite. But then that means you're going to so then you would just have to rotate. So then you're going to have to rotate these women out to get the tag titles on TV. Like if your women's tag champions are going to be wrestling on that show, then that means other women won't. But then I guess you could make the same argument that if the TBS title is on, then that means the other title won't be on, or the women's title. So, I mean, that is practically what they're doing. I don't think women's tag titles equals more women on TV. As in, yes, more women, obviously, because they're in the tag team, but as in they're not getting more matches on TV. Like, it will still be 1 match on Dynamite and 2, sometimes 3 on Collision. Like, I think if they add in a tag team championship, so yes, you get more women on TV because you have 4 women in a match, or if you're doing like a multi-woman match, obviously. So yes, in that sense, yes, you do get more women on TV, but as in the number of matches itself, I think that would stay the same. So that's mostly why I've been against it. Again, the women's division has been booked the best it has been. And if we can keep that momentum going, again, with being cautiously optimistic with the women's division, then yes, perhaps women's tag titles are something that they should introduce, because you do have a lot of women who aren't being used, like Deanna and Taya. And you've got Willow. A lot of people I've seen people, the new argument is we need women's tag titles so that Chris and Willow have titles. Which not necessarily a bad argument, But
Baba asked me last night why Marina couldn't beat John Moxley up and take the title. He said it's not called the men's championship, it's called the world championship.
Because Marina in the interview that she did with the Up Close, her job is to protect the title and to protect the person who has that title.
We just thought he like made me think, that'd be
maybe
funny.
She gets fed up and takes it. But as of right now,
he just told me that he thought it would be great if she smashed him with the thing. He took the title.
Like, I would not be mad at that. I would not be mad at.
And
Marina.
then Willow wrestled her for it and won it, and because Moxley fears her,
I'll take it. I'll take that scenario.
She took a paradigm shift from him, so
yes, he fears her. Like, it's Yano and
Willow,
and I think he's afraid of Marina. And he has said,
well, I do think that. I think that's why he's got her on his side.
He did say in his interview that he fears 3 women: his mother, his sister, and his wife. But I think he also fears Marina. Mm-hmm. So she is his bodyguard. And then he also clearly fears Willow.
Clearly.
So, and he doesn't want to admit it, but we all know he fears Toriano. And maybe Toriano is the one person who can come and take this title from you. Maybe that's why
that would be the best longest term payoff storytelling ever. And only like a certain funny group of us would but it would be worth it.
Yeah. Jermaine said, I knew releases were coming, but WWE just announced they had a AAA wrestling and the most profit they've ever done, and business is booming, and 2 weeks later you're doing releases, which is on brand for them. It's very much right. Look over here, not over here. But it's, and again, we know WrestleMania season is they do releases right after, and that's on brand for them, but it's still like, it still sucks to see. And even though we know, and especially when you are touting these big, don't tell
me awesome. We just purchased a new company. We love everything. You're fired.
Yes. Brad says that it sucks that Mike and JD show is on hiatus. The rant JD would have gone on about Hogan and Bischoff Amateur Wrestling Company would have been epic.
True story.
Yeah. Well, he has some time because it was just kind of like an announcement. We're looking for more information. I did not read the article because I don't care.
Huh.
I don't care. I did see a headline that Hulk Hogan wants their company to be like the voice of wrestling. I don't know what like the voice, that like the singing show. I don't know what he means by that. I did not read to find out, but I did see the screenshot of the article that was going around where where Hulk Hogan praised Tony Khan. He put over Tony Storm and he put over Mariah May. Which made me laugh because Eric
really just has no limit, does he?
Eric's brand is hating on them. But I had the same thought and then I saw somebody say the same thing as Hulk Hogan. AEW has banned Hulk Hogan and Linda Hogan from ever being, they are banned from the shows.
Sounds good to me.
He publicly banned them years ago, like when AEW first started, and somebody said that Hulk was saying those things so that he would get invited to a show, which would not surprise me at all.
No, I absolutely. I've read a lot about that guy at this point. It's bad.
It made me laugh though, because Eric, they're doing an interview with Bischoff and Hogan, and Bischoff's whole thing is, he's obviously a grifter. He hates everything AEW does. He hates Tony Khan because Tony Khan didn't give him a job. The real reason for whatever he says, the real reason is they did in year one, they did bring Eric Bischoff in. They used him a couple of times on TV, but then he was not hired. And then that's where all this started, is because he didn't get a job. So that's the whole reason. And besides grifting,
because we all know that in Eric Bischoff's mind, Eric Bischoff is the greatest wrestling mind of all time.
Right. And that he did not kill WCW.
No, he had nothing to do with it.
He had nothing to do with it. So much so that he and Hulk Hogan are going to have their own promotion.
That they can kill her.
But it just made me laugh. But again, because Eric Bischoff, his whole thing is his whole grift is hating AEW and hates Tony Khan. Then here's Hulk Hogan saying these positive things, whether they're genuine or not, or the fact that he's just trying to get in Tony Khan's good graces. It's just really funny to see those statements attributed to him when he's sitting there with Eric Bischoff, who hates who hates Tony Khan.
Not to mention, like, you know what that reeks of as someone who worked in childcare for a really long time is like the little kid that's sitting with you and they're like 5 or 6 and they're trying to convince you, like, you've never been told before that, oh, no, I love that guy. Like, the little 6-year-old who beats up like every single kid is like, oh, no, I'm not a mean kid. I've never hurt anybody before. And it's like, dude, I'm 30. You're 6. I've watched you kick everybody's ass on the playground repeatedly. I've had to put you in timeout 38,000 times. Now you're like, I'll be good. I promise. Don't you like me now? I'll be nice to everyone. I've always really liked those people. I didn't mean to push them down.
Right.
What am I like? I mean, I know people fall for this, or they think, oh, that guy's popular enough. But I think, as WWE has proven as recently as a couple months ago, when they thought, I said WWE, right? When they brought the dude out and he got booed
out of the building,
like,
and I got to write about it for Wrestling Inc. It was fun.
Well, because that was a great article too, because it was like, what were you thinking in the first place? Like, you made the point that almost everybody else went, hello?
Right. What are you doing here?
What are we doing here?
Right. Again, and now they like have those little jump scares because Netflix still shows those ads for his beer because they're like a minor, and WWE is like a minor investor.
Yeah, they're stuck.
And so, like, every once in a while, or like every like other commercial break, there's like this jump scare of Hulk Hogan because they're showing the commercial.
We were just talking in our Discord about, like, with movies, how it's 70 and 80-year-old white men in charge. Even, like, Garrett brought it up. He's like, yeah, but it's all 70-year-old old white men in charge. I'm like, okay, he's so right, though. I was like, it's like Congress. It's all because of most of our infrastructure is being run by people who are outdated.
Yeah.
They don't get it. They really, they think they get it because you can tell they think they get it by their social medias. And you're like, okay, grandma, but that's not how you use that.
Right.
Except you're my age. So I don't know. It's like.
That makes sense. And also, we have Josiah in the chat. Hopefully he's still here. Glad that you could join us today. JD will totally have a rant saved for us.
That when they come back, it will be Mike Gilbert genuinely popped me when because I guess some guys from Observer are doing a show for that to cover that, and he was saying how they heard I was in hiatus, but he did pop me with the comment about it took him to tours in Afghanistan and like career military to get through as many years of TNA that he's tackled. So,
it has prepared him mentally for that.
I love Mike so much. He never fails with that stuff.
Mike Gilbert.
I can't wait till those guys come back around. They've both been exceedingly busy, it seems.
Yeah, imagine that. They both have had.
They're out living their best lives, I think, as well. So
yes, good for them.
I mean, they'll be back. Don't worry. Of course, we're supposed to hate Voices of Wrestling. I know, but or whatever.
I don't hate them. That's for sure.
They're awesome.
Yeah, Jermaine says AEW has a problem when they lost Rampage. It made Collision better for some reason, but it hurt the women's division because less matches are on TV. Rampage was as much as before Jon Moxley killed it. Damn that Jon Moxley. He killed it. He killed the Death Riders.
We know who to
Jon
blame.
Moxley killed it. We were getting 2 women's matches, but they were short, less than 5 minutes. But they were also kind of advancing storylines. But now Collision typically, in most cases, has 2 women's matches a night. We've been getting story. That's where the Megan Bain story has been built. They built Mercedes and Athena. How dare they build that on Collision? And then we had Toni Storm, who she's doing her title eliminator matches because what else is she gonna do while she's waiting to find out who she wrestles it all in? So at least they're using her. They're also focusing on ROH women, which with Queen Aminata and Lady Frost, which I'm so glad because I love both of them. They're both excellent. Queen Aminata is in the pure. She will be in the pure women's title tournament. I assume Lady Frost will also be in that tournament, and she's wrestling in CMLL a lot. That's clearly an important relationship with them. They're going to be building Forbidden Door. So, and I think they said Lady Frost is like 13 and has 13 wins in her last 17 CMLL matches, which is really great.
Great.
And then we had the really incredible Toni Storm promo last night, which was just Toni on brand, who also said she was going on the broad walk. And I was like, oh, she's an honorary broad. She's going for a walk on the broad walk. It popped me. And then she's talking about, of course, talking in the way that only Toni can talk about, like how she's the slut that you can't rebut and all of the things.
Toni Storm always comes.
Yes,
for
Toni
everyone.
comes for everyone. Then she announced on TV, I don't want to say announced because this was known information, but she said in her promo last night that she is here and she is queer and she's timeless. And so I feel like I wonder if the reason she said it last night is because of the number of LGBTQ people who have been released from WWE, and she is used on TV regularly. And I know, so, there's the conversations about, obviously she is in a heteronormative relationship as she is married to a man. That does not mean that she's not bisexual. That's where she was. And so people last night, of course, typical responses, AEW is woke, or they thought her character was saying it. No. Toni Storm, when she was in WWE, she came out.
Maybe she's just platforming representation at a time when we need it.
She came out in WWE as bi. WWE, when they did actually post, because they didn't celebrate Black History Month this month. That was another conversation about how it's a bunch of white men. They didn't celebrate Black History Month this month like they typically do on social media. But when they were focusing on Pride Month, they had videos of different wrestlers, and Toni was in there. So Toni has been openly queer for several years now, but because she is married to a man, people obviously then they think that means that she's not, and it turns into these whole conversations. Then I saw somebody said it's an old Hollywood character, and that's why she said it.
Well,
please go look up Rock Hudson and talk and find out people who in old Hollywood, how they could not be openly gay.
Oh man. Oh my God. It was terrible.
Yeah, but somebody thought, they were like, oh, she's just doing it because she's an old Hollywood character. Old Hollywood actors could not be out. They could not be open about.
You might be using
that.
I mean, if they're saying that in the context of someone using the word queer, as in that is weird in the 40s, you may have said that is queer, that is strange, that is weird.
But people were
nowadays you're using that terminology. That is, we all have a common we have a common current current understanding of what that term means, I think, today.
Yeah.
So I guess that's true. It's the same as like gay apparel. I get it from, Don We Now Are, but.
Right. Thank you, Brad. The B in LGBTQIA plus is bisexual. Please.
No, but,
yes, and
we're talking about a group of people who they search with A1. So.
Right. And like Josiah said, old Hollywood people were forced into arranged marriage just to keep up appearances. Correct. Again, which is why I said go look up. Don't use AI to go look this up.
No.
Don't
A1.
Use Rock. Don't use that. But please go search Rock Hudson. That is perhaps maybe one of the most famous versions of
horrible
a story. Of course, there were multiple, but Rock Hudson is probably one of the most famous cases of somebody who was gay and had to hide it because of the sex symbol that he was in old Hollywood and the things that were happening. And yes, he is one of many examples, but
no, it would not be
but yeah, it was just, but I thought the promo was handled in a way that only Toni can do it. I didn't feel, because people were saying it was forced, that they forced her to do it. I think Toni just said it. I don't even know that she planned to say it. I think it just kind of, or maybe she was just being supportive of a lot of not just the number of the number of apparently that there are now no openly anybody in the LGBTQIA plus community in WWE. But then you also have a lot of these people who are under attack by our government in this current administration. Again, that was something that Effie's Big Gay Brunch was talking about. Effie gave an incredible speech. So did Dark Sheik at the end, especially involving transgender wrestlers. And so it feels like, so Tony, I think it felt like maybe it was a broad support, not just of these people in WWE, which it could have been, because obviously she used to work there and she probably knows a lot of these people.
But marginalized also, people are under attack.
Right. And so to have someone of Toni Storm's stature, who is she's probably the biggest female wrestler, not named Mercedes Moné right now. And she's definitely one of AEW's biggest stars, regardless. And so to have her say something like that on live television, I think was huge. And it felt like, again, I don't think it was performative. I don't think it was planned. I think it was just Toni being Toni and using her platform to say what she had to say. And I thought it was really a really great moment. And I hope that people who are in that community felt supported by her by having someone like that say that on national television. Just, so good for Toni Storm, and she's great. And again, on the one hand, make her champion for all time.
Yes, of course.
that was like one half of me. Forever. I love my forever champion Athena, but I will also take forever champion Toni Storm. But at some point, we also do have to get that title.
All good things have to end.
They do, because then it can't be as great again.
The problem is with it just about anything, especially in this day and age. And she's held on for a really long time. But people have short attention spans nowadays, and things play out. And when you don't want it to get to a point where it's played out so hard that the people forget what was great about it.
Right.
Because that's unfortunately what our culture tends to do, is remember the reasons they bias. They'll hold a grudge and forget about all the good stuff that happened up to that point. It's like, guys, we got a huge long moment of brilliant storyline here. Things. Now it's time to do a new one. She's so great. I mean, I just love listening to her promos. I could do it all day.
You just never know what she's gonna say. And then Nigel said, I think Tony said it before, but then Nigel said it, that if you're a bitch that has the itch to get in the ring, Tony's not hard to find.
He's great. He's been picking up what she's putting down pretty hard. So.
Yes. Oh my God. Last night he made a reference to James Blunt in the middle of the main event. I'm listening, typing, and he compared FTR to a couple of James Blunts, and I had to have Nikki pause it because I was laughing so hard. I was like, this happens at least once an episode where I have to pause it because Nigel is making me laugh, and I can't. Then I forget what I just watched.
He's been good. He's been putting some bangers out there these days. Some real singers. You're like, oh my God.
He's very quick. He's very quick-witted, and it was so great. And then last night they had Adam Cole on commentary. I'm not really sure why he wasn't just on commentary for the main event, but listening to him talk, he was not that he was bad at it at all, and he wasn't like a distraction, but it was so funny because during the match with Megan Bayne, I think he's watched Megan Bayne, but I don't know if he's seen her that close.
Oh.
But one of the times she lifted, she just, the way she picked up Harley, and you could just hear him, and he was like, oh my gosh. Or he was like, the strength, or I can't remember, but he kind of whispered it because but you could tell it was a genuine reaction to how strong she is, and he couldn't believe it. But it was so funny because he's awesome. I don't know if he didn't realize he was on the mic or what. I mean, not that it was he didn't say anything bad, but it was so funny. He was clearly very impressed.
You got a genuine reaction.
Yeah, and it was great. So I enjoyed him. I just was really surprised because I was like, oh, well, maybe Nigel's not there. But then Nigel started talking, and I was like, okay, well, I guess they were just like, hey, you want to come do commentary?
Or he was lurking for somebody.
Again, it made sense for the main. And then I guess maybe the other thing is because they did the $100,000 high speed 4-way match with Kevin Knight, who just won $100,000. I was like, maybe he needs money to take with him to Japan. It was him, Roosh, AR Fox, and Sammy Guevara. So Sammy has not been on AEW television in months. And then Sammy wins, and then he points at Adam Cole. Adam Cole is the TNT champion. Sammy is the former TNT champion. Maybe that was another reason why they had him on commentary. I don't know why they couldn't have just done that as a backstage segment, but again,
I did get a chuckle when Nigel said that he just won $100,000 for his new baby. I was like, okay, that's cute though too. I'm like, all right, smart ass. He just came back long enough to win $100K for his
right.
kid.
Yeah, so I was a little
Those kids aren't hard to, they're not easy to raise. It ain't cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, so he not, again, like, he didn't take anything away from it. It was just I was surprised because I was like, it made sense for the main event because of the story they've been telling with FTR and Paragon and Daniel Garcia and all that. Like, that made sense. But I was like, okay, we're on commentary. Because at first, when he went to commentary, I was like, oh, are they opening with FTR? And then Tony Storm's music hit. And I was like, all right, well, I guess he's just on commentary for the whole thing. Yeah, Nikki said she had to pause it immediately to process what Nigel said when he called him a couple of James Blunt.
I haven't even heard. When he said it, I was like, "Did he just say James Blunt?" And
yeah, that's what I did, and I had to pause. That's why I had to pause it because
Blunt reference. And I was like,
"Well," and we were trying to figure out because I have James's first album, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's very, very funny. But Nikki was like, doesn't he have a reputation for being an asshole? And I was like, I'm trying to remember if that's what it was and if that's why he was
I think it's more like a tool than an asshole.
Right. And I was like, I don't know if that's why he was comparing him to FTR is because that's who he was comparing it to. And I guess that's what the correlation was.
I took it more like, because I think James Blunt, not like a douche, but more like a tool. You know what I mean?
Could be that.
Which
maybe
FTR are kind of tools at this point, so it's fair.
I don't know, but I was like, never thought I'd hear a James Blunt reference in 2025 on a wrestling show, but here we are. Thank you, Nigel McGuinness, for
bingo
the gold that you are. And so, since we are now on the subject of AEW, we will get into. So now we do know the 2 Owen Cup matches at Double or Nothing. These are the only official matches for Double or Nothing, and it is 21 days from now. It's May 25th. So we have 2 official announcements.
Match announcements. Or 3, because we have the 2. Because it's Hangman Ospreay, Joe and Mox, and the women.
Joe and Mox is not at Double or Nothing. That's that Beach Break.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It's not this Wednesday. It's next Wednesday. You're right.
It's the steel cage match at Beach Break. So
that's right. They're skipping us and they're giving it to Chicago where they go all the effing time. But whatever.
Well, it's because I think it's because it's a themed episode. It's Beach Break, and I guess that's why they're doing it.
Well, I know, but we only have the first Blood and Guts here. But
that's true.
I guess you can have a Beach Break in the middle of May in Chicago, but not in Michigan.
Well, they did Beach Break remember when they did Beach Break? What was it?
Like,
and it had
Minnesota
on the ground, and Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks were outside in the snow.
Yeah, it was like in Minnesota, in the middle of April. It was like Minnesota in the middle of like March or something.
And so they were like out there in the snow.
Why do you keep having Beach Break in the Midwest in the middle of the early spring or like late winter?
I don't know.
I mean, we do have beaches here, and you can go to them, but you really don't want to in the middle of March,
right? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe now he just does it because it's funny. I don't know. But they are getting that match. Yeah. So as of right now, there are 2 matches because Hangman Page and Kyle Fletcher had a banger of a match to close Dynamite, and Hangman just barely beat Kyle Fletcher. And so he will face Will Ospreay at Double or Nothing, and the winner will presumably get Jon Moxley. Perhaps Samoa Joe, if Samoa Joe beats him in that cage and wins the title. I don't think that's what's happening.
I don't think so either.
I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was, and they were like, it was a wrestling writer. They were like, you should just put the title on Samoa. How did they word it? Quit worrying about, I don't remember how it was, what their reasoning was. They were like, but just put the title on Samoa Joe. And I was like, to have him drop it all in, because that's been the plan. Like, assuming Tony still does things the way he does year one, he books his champions out a year in advance. Like, and I don't think it was Samoa. I don't think you're going to have. I mean, of course, you could have Samoa Joe win here and then he retains it all in, but I don't think that's what we're doing here. I think Jon Moxley is losing it all in. And
yeah, it makes the most sense.
I think that's what's happening. I see the arguments for Hangman Page winning at All In. I also see people working themselves into a shoot because they have convinced themselves that Hangman is going to win.
I don't think he's winning that
he's winning at Double or Nothing, and then they think he's beating Jon Moxley. And I get it I get it because it's Hangman. Hangman is beloved. The title run he got. People have feelings. Some people don't think it was a good title reign, especially. And now we have this version of Hangman. Hangman's so much better. He's improved so much since that, and he's been on this redemption arc with Swerve and all of that. But I still think it's going to be Will Ospreay. I think Will Ospreay is beating Hangman, and I think Will Ospreay is beating Jon Moxley. Because they said when Will Ospreay was brought in, they said that he would not be a champion in his first year. He has now surpassed 1 year of being in the company. I think this was the plan all along, but I think, and you're going into Forbidden Door,
which is
in the UK, and I think they're going to go into Forbidden Door with 2 British champions. And
I think I saw that it did sell out. I think someone posted the Brandon Thurston numbers, the WrestleNomics numbers, that the Forbidden Door pre-sale just happened because I had a code
right.
And I'm pretty sure it did sell out. So
I think I saw something about that too, and it sold like the pre-sale sold,
or it was good.
Yeah, I think that, and so Brad's on the same page. Ospreay is winning and walking into Forbidden Door.
That seems to be the trajectory, and it makes the most sense.
Right, and again, like I love Hangman Page. That has been my guy since he wrestled in my local promotion for years. Hangman is my guy. He did nothing wrong.
I don't even think he may not win the title again.
Yeah, I think he'll be. I think we see him as champion again. I think that's happening. I just don't think it's happening now. Not when you have Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega.
I think you have to have the.
We also don't know how long we're going to have Kenny Omega.
Right.
And so
hopefully, we need to get the Ospreay, or we need to get the Omega Okada 5 thing happening.
Yeah. Hopefully, knock on wood, nothing happens to Hangman Page where where that's his only title run. But also, we don't know how long we've got Kenny Omega for.
Correct.
And I feel like Omega taking the title off of Ospreay makes so much sense with their history in New Japan. And AEW loves playing on that. Kenny Omega loves long-term storytelling. He loves telling stories like that bring back his past and bring it full circle. So I think that will be the eventual story, is that Kenny Omega will eventually be the one to dethrone Will Ospreay. And so I think that happens sometime next year. Perhaps at next year's All In, perhaps at next year's Forbidden Door. Who knows? When, or maybe sooner. Obviously, just depends on how it plays out. But I feel like those are your next 2 champions.
And I think you have the Moxley and Samoa Joe thing, regardless of where it lands. I mean, obviously that's a special one, so it makes sense. I think you have to do that because Joe got hot, so they need to they need to end that somehow. And I think a steel cage is a really good
and Joe is the trios champion, so it's not like
he's not going anywhere. He's just not going to be bothering with the main title.
I don't know if he has any other film projects lined up, so that may be something that would take him away from being world champion, from being on television as a world champion. So, maybe there's that factor. But I mean, Samoa Joe is like an Orange Cassidy or a Jon Moxley in the fact that you could always put a title on him and it will work and it will make sense and people will love it. I mean, I know this Jon Moxley story is a bit different, but regardless of story, but Jon Moxley was your guy that you could call on, just like Orange Cassidy was, a guy you could depend on as well. And Samoa Joe, Samoa Joe is winding down his career. He has said that he doesn't know how much longer he'll be wrestling. He may only have a few years left. he gets to wrestle with Shibata.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And now Hobbs, it was obviously Hook. Hook is off doing a film, and we'll see him. I don't know. I joked when they injured Shibata, I was like, oh, is Shibata going to film a movie too? Is that why they threw him over a chair? I do with
sorry. Don't mind my crazy thingy.
Here.
It was off, but now it's not, apparently.
It happens. But Fernando says that he thinks MJF is going to hurt Hangman before the Double or Nothing match to prove himself to the Hurt Syndicate. Bobby did tell MJF, basically to impress us, you have to hurt someone, and you can't. Because I was like, is he just going to hurt some like indie wrestler or like somebody like a Blake Christian who is not somebody that is not a major star, but to impress Bobby Lashley, you are going to have to hurt somebody who is a big name. And that Fernando, that is definitely something I could see happening, because Hangman is somebody, they have history together. MJF hates Hangman.
Yep.
He's jealous of him. Hangman would be one step closer to regaining the title, which is the whole reason MJF is aligning with Hurt Syndicate, because he thinks they can help him get the title. So that actually makes a ton of sense, Fernando. That's really interesting.
I'm into that.
I could see.
That'd be a good thing for him to be doing anyway. Get MJF back around into like wrestling and doing stuff, and
right. Yeah, that's
less
certainly
like promo eating up
right.
time.
And then that gives Hangman something to do that doesn't involve Swerve.
Right.
So that could give him something to do as well. Perhaps maybe we were wrong. Maybe because we thought maybe they would do Hangman versus Swerve at All In, but maybe it's Hangman versus MJF at All In.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where they're going with that, and Swerve's going to be doing something else.
Which would be kind of fun if they take time off from each other, because you can always bring that story back when you need it.
Right.
Because
there had been the theory that maybe they do Swerve and Hangman versus the Young Bucks, but which they still could. But perhaps they could go that route. Maybe we do get Hangman and MJF, because that's also a big story besides Hangman and Swerve. Hangman and MJF has been a story they've told for a while too that they could revisit. So that's it too. Fernando says, didn't Joe get the title because Adam Cole got injured? I think. Let's see. He vacated the ROH title in the ring instead of dropping it to someone there. Trying to remember.
That is not what I did the answer to.
No, because Adam Cole didn't have the world title, right? No. So Samoa Joe got the world title. Oh, that's the Devil storyline.
Mm-hmm. Was it in the Devil?
That was the Devil storyline is what set that up. Right? Because Samoa Joe was the champion. No, Samoa Joe beat MJF at World's End. And that's when Adam Cole turned on MJF. And it turns out he was the Devil the whole time. And that storyline that we all try to forget, which is probably why we forgot that.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I think my brain is like blocking it out because my short-term memory already is struggles. So it's like, no, definitely not.
Brad also has another interesting theory, is that MJF hurts Bobby Lashley with the help of his new unit, whoever that is. That is interesting, because they have seemed to have hinted about, Richard Holiday and Alex Hammerstone coming in, because that was MJF crew in MLW. Alex
Varsity
Hammerstone
or whatever
is working in MLW, but I'd assume that he'd be able to do both. Or who knows, maybe it was just a contract, like maybe it was just a one-off that he was in the Battle Riot, or maybe so it could be that. And then Richard Holiday has been doing stuff in GCW. I think, or if he's been in MLW too. So yeah, there's a possibility that they do that too. So there are a couple different ways they can go with this. I think this Hurt Syndicate story isn't all that it appears to be. Like, I feel like it's setting up more, and it's just been kind of not a placeholder. But obviously it's telling the story of how MJF can't improve anything. But yeah, so he could. That also is a good theory too, because if he hurts Bobby Lashley, then he doesn't need to join the Hurt Syndicate, and he's got his new crew with him. So there's that too. And there had been, I mean, clearly I don't want to say clearly they're not because Stoke is there. There had been theories that they were going to bring back the Pinnacle when FTR turned heel, because FTR has referenced the word Pinnacle a couple times, saying that I think they said they're the Pinnacle of Tag Team Wrestling or, whatever. MJF has mentioned it a few times. Commentary has also mentioned it, have just kind of slipped the word in there. So that's kind of fueled the theory that perhaps the Pinnacle was getting back together without Wardlow and Sean Spears in NXT. And apparently Meltzer said, I don't know when this was, but somebody asked about Wardlow the other day, and Meltzer said he had knee surgery. I don't know if this is a recent knee surgery, if he's in the process. He had it a while back and he's been recovering this whole time. So Brad says MJF and FTR don't get along per reports from some people. That sounds vaguely familiar and also completely unsurprising considering the 3 people involved.
That's a lot of ego.
So then perhaps they would just happen to, maybe they were just trying to throw people off track and make you think that that's where they were going. And then FTR got Stokely, who apparently is dropping his last name and is no longer Stokely Hathaway. He's just Stokely now. He's just Stokely. And then maybe MJF is bringing in his crew. Maybe it is Holiday and Hammerstone, or maybe he's aligning with someone else. So, and then I was thinking about it. I was thinking that after they do this 6-man at Dynamite, if we're doing Anarchy in the Arena, like, we need to be announcing that soon.
Yeah.
But I can't remember how far in advance they announced that this was something that was, if the times before when they've done Anarchy and or Stadium Stampede, if they've waited like a week before, or if they gave like a few weeks. So maybe it's something that comes a bit later, if that's what they're doing. But yeah, we need this Double or Nothing card to start filling out, which I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll start filling out this week.
It's now we're in the second week of May, I guess. So now we really have to start thinking about.
And we've got the two really big matches. We've got Hangman and Ospreay, and then Monet and Hayter, which both matches I think are going to be great. But that'll be interesting though, if Fernando's theory is correct, if they do that in both, because I feel like Athena gets involved, and we talked about this last week. I think Athena might cost Mercedes the spot, and that's how Jamie gets. Not that Jamie can't beat Mercedes clean.
No, of course, but it might just be part of the story.
I can't remember this. Maybe either or somebody in the chat can confirm. If Mercedes loses at Double or Nothing via like a DQ, does her undefeated streak still stay intact? Right?
God, I don't know.
I think like it still stays intact because it's not an official loss. It's
I don't like know. A loss by ties DQ. Count as ties, not defeats usually.
Right. So I would assume.
I mean, in tournament style, you get a point still for a tie. You know what I mean? It's 2 for a win, 1 for a tie, 0 for a loss. So
they have been talking. They clearly were making reference to the fact that she's undefeated since coming in singles action since she has been in AEW, and certainly losing to Jamie Hayter is not going to hurt Mercedes. Jamie Hayter's obviously, she's a former champion. She's a fantastic wrestler. It will not hurt her. But I wondered if she won via DQ, like if Jamie wins via DQ because Athena gets involved, which again would set up Athena versus Mercedes at All In, leaves Jamie versus Tony for All In. Does that still leave Mercedes' record intact? But they have been hinting at the fact that perhaps Jamie is the one to end it, which again, that would be huge for Jamie Hayter, will not hurt Mercedes in any way. Brad says Jamie could win. Mercedes attacks her post-match and Athena makes the save to set up the match. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a way to do it. I still feel like regardless, we get Jamie versus Tony and Athena versus Mercedes at All In. And there's a couple different ways they could get to it. But if they're going to do an interference in one match, I don't know that in one Owen Cup match, I don't know that they'll do another one in the other, if they'll do 2 non-finishes.
You don't want 2 finals with interference because you don't want to like make the foundation tournament be too hokey. Because it still means something. We might have to remember that at the end of the day, it's still named after Owen. It still goes to the foundation.
Right.
We're still trying to do something nice for a family and for a wrestler that should have been, obviously honored sooner than the last few years. So
right.
I don't want to do too much of that with it because we don't want to make the Owen look hokey, especially since, once again, I like the Owen. It continues to pay these matches. Even this year where I was, well, is the Owen going to be this good this year? Yep, it is.
Yeah.
They've
had really great matches on both sides of the bracket.
Yeah.
Both the men and the women have been really great matches. And we've got women's main events out of it. I asked Tony if that was just for the tournament or if that was something we were going to see more of the future. Obviously, he was non-committal and answered in the way that Tony answers. So we shall see once the tournament concludes.
Tony's dodge is like plus 20 against Sam.
So. I'm convinced that's why he keeps putting FTR in the main event.
And she seems to keep rolling a 1 every time.
I'm convinced that's why he keeps, but they're like, he knows that I cover Collision and he knows my feelings on FTR, so he just keeps putting him in the main event.
Dodge effect, Samantha Shipman.
And my other theory is he puts in matches he knows I'm gonna like that, but it's just gonna be a lot to write. Like the four-way last night. Like I was like, hell yeah, this match is gonna be awesome. I don't want to cover it. Crew versus Top Flight and a tornado tag match is gonna be great. I don't want to write about it.
I will get her.
He succeeds all the time. Thankfully, the Jericho rumor did not pan out last night.
Yeah, what's up with him? So I saw a post that he was bailing on a Fozzy show.
Yes. So the venue that he was supposed to play at last night announced Fozzy's canceled. He chose wrestling over us. So I was like, he's going to be on Collision then. But then Brad was like, apparently he canceled 3 months ago and the venue is salty, which also seems to be the case.
Okay.
However, it still left last night open for him to come, but he didn't, thankfully, unless he's on ROH. Maybe they filmed something for ROH. But I was like, please don't. I thought when they were doing the Brian Keith and Big Bill segment, I was like, he's gonna be back there in the parking lot. I mean, in the I guess it was technically the parking lot. Nikki was like, he's gonna be there with a fireball, which would have been on brand. But thankfully,
feeling Chic's gimmick. It's old and you're not Chic.
Yeah, so thankfully, right. Thankfully, that did not happen unless he's on ROH, which
I just thought that tweet was hilarious because of the way they were like, he chose wrestling, and I was just like, he's a wrestler.
Right, but he was going on tour, which
yeah.
But still, though he,
I didn't look very far. I thought the whole thing was kind of hilarious because I was like, well, that's a way to go with your thingy. But I don't know the whole story, but this is hilarious.
Yeah, apparently it was 3 months ago, and maybe the venue was just being salty and posted it last night. I don't know if they had, because somebody thought that the venue didn't announce it until last night, even though
well, that would be on that.
Which would be shitty, regardless. But regardless, it seemed like Jericho had a free Saturday night. And still would have left him open for Collision. Thankfully, he did not do that.
Joke's on all of you. He took a mental health day.
Good for him, I guess.
You're like, take as many as you need. Take all the mental health.
Yeah, right.
Take a mental health retirement. Hey, I'm saying that as a member of the mental health community. I am not making fun, okay? I'm just joking around. I am not being like mean. I'm not being ableist and mean.
No.
I say that as a total crazy person.
So yeah, it sounds like you are getting some fun matches that have been announced so far for
Wednesday. I'm pretty excited that. So, I mean, I was in a place for a while where I wasn't sure if I would even buy tickets when they came back around, and then of course bought both. And now I'm glad to hear that they're both going to be live, which is always awesome. It will be our first Collision here in the city, so that's fun. I think this venue is going to be a lot more fun, and I'm glad they're on a roll because some of even the 8-man tag from the other night, and there's just been a lot of fun stuff on it. Yeah. The pacing's been getting better, so they're in a great spot for it. And I mean,
and you're heading into a pay-per-view, so things will start being I guess not that they're not already storyline driven, but more storyline driven to get to Double or Nothing. And
Detroit crowds come to play when we.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be loud in there.
Yeah.
And it's
a theater. In a small venue this time, so I'm sure it's going to be even
It'll be
louder.
A lot better.
Right.
It's a lot like some of the venues I've seen, and this will be a really for what they've been doing, it'll be a really keen spot. I'm very excited.
And now you've got Collision live instead of pre-taped. So that'll bring some different energy because it's a live show versus taped. And it's leading into, so I'm sure we'll see some cool stuff. And you got some cool storytelling on Collision. Obviously you've got but then FTR or Stokes said last night, I believe he told Paragon that if they lost again, they wouldn't be able to challenge FTR anymore.
Okay.
And then Paragon lost in the dumbest way possible. I hated them. I mean, not just because it was FTR winning, but I hated the way they did it. And it was so dumb. But I guess their workaround is going to be like, well, they would have had it won if Cash didn't put Dax's ankle on the rope or whichever FTR it was.
Okay.
And maybe that's their technicality and they get around to it again. But like I've seen please take a break. Like at least it's been against Paragon and it's against people I like. Right. So at least if I'm having to watch an FTR match, I at least get to see Roddy Strong and Kyle O'Reilly do what they do best. So there's that at least. Okay, sorry. We just had a note pop up on the thing, and I was apparently Twitter is having some technical difficulties. It might be on Twitter's end. Okay.
Oh,
please check.
Hang on. Don't worry about that.
For a while.
Why is it?
Okay.
What happened?
Did it end the whole? No, I think it's just okay.
Fine. It's
sorry. Mel and I both just had a message pop up, and apparently Twitter. So if you are watching our stream on Twitter, you may have been having trouble streaming, from what this message tells us.
Late in the broadcast, but
so like it's an issue on their end. Please keep checking to ensure the stream looks okay. If this continues for a while, try creating a new live stream or just remove it. Okay. So if you're watching on Twitter and having problems, we apologize.
Yeah. You can always finish up on the rewatch. And
yes,
we're on the YouTubes, which is listed here. And we can always use the subscriptions because it helps us and it helps the network and all our cool friends.
If you were watching there and you were having problems, we apologize.
We apologize.
Try closing out, going back in. If that still doesn't fix it, actually let us know so that we can report
it.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've never seen that message pop up, and it took up like a good chunk of the screen and completely made me lose my train of thought because of something bad was. I mean,
like, wait, what? It popped up for me later. So
yeah, I thought something.
No, nothing serious. It's all good.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot where. We were talking about the FTR thing. So yes, I guess I can get off on a technicality. The match itself, I agree, was excellent. I just hated the ending. I thought the ending was convoluted and just really dumb. But other than up until that point, I thought it was a really good match. And the match last week was really good as well. So as much as I cannot stand those two, I enjoyed it. Yes, Megan and Harley was really good. Proud of Harley. I was surprised at how much time that got, considering and not that Harley's not a good. I enjoy Harley a lot, but Megan is supposed to be this dominant force that stops everybody, but Harley Cameron is the one who gets one of the longest matches out of her, but besides Toni Storm. Like, I thought that was kind of interesting, which, I mean, I guess I know it's saying a lot for what they think of Harley. And again, that is not to take away anything from Harley, but Harley is a fairly new wrestler, and you have her being the one who can push Megan Bayne to a 9.5-minute match. Again, nothing against Harley, but it was just an interesting story. I was like, your story as Megan is like this really strong woman that nobody, that hardly anybody can beat. Toni Storm barely beat her at the pay-per-view. The next person to take her that far is Harley Cameron, which is an interesting story. But again, I just thought I was like, oh, that's kind of, I figured with the matches last night, I thought that because of Lady Frost's success, but I guess Lady Frost is in the aid. If you don't watch ROH and you don't watch Collision, even though Lady Frost hasn't been on Collision as much, Harley Cameron, I guess, is the more well-known of the two. But I thought that Toni and and Lady Frost would have been the longer of the two, and that Megan was going to kind of squash Harley in like 3 or 4 minutes. I didn't expect Tony's match to last like 5.5 minutes, and this one to get as long as it did, which I have not mad at. I just, when I saw that on paper, it definitely went the opposite of where I thought it was going. But I'm glad to see both of those. I thought Lady Frost looked incredible in her match with Tony. I'm a big fan of Lady Frost. I think she's
me too.
Great.
Love her.
But I really like Harley, and then that too. So I didn't have a problem with it. I thought they were both fun. Then we have the story. It seems like we're building up another story because obviously we have Penelope in the picture, and then Anna Jay comes out because that's the whole reason Harley challenged her, was because Anna Jay is her friend, and they went to Coachella together, and she didn't appreciate Megan and Penelope jumping Anna Jay, and then Anna Jay got involved last night. So it seems like maybe we've got a 4-way coming up for Collision, perhaps. So we've got that kind of stuff, and I'm glad to see Harley in a story after that ended. Maria said Megan should win the AW Women's Championship after Tony after All In. I do think Megan is gonna eventually be the champion, and I thought that's what they were doing at Revolution. I thought Megan was gonna get the win there because it would have been much more effective for Megan to beat Tony there, but clearly they're having her because of All In. But I could see Mercedes definitely Megan being champion within the next year. I see that. I definitely see, and I can see her. I think she would be a really good person for the TBS championship. Not that she couldn't be a women's champion, because she certainly could, but I think that I could see that happening. And let's see. Jermaine says, yes. Since training with Mercedes, Harley has really improved in the ring. She really has. And it looks like she needed somebody to take that time to kind of invest into her. Because when she was in WWE, she never had a match. Like, that's crazy. And so she didn't have anybody investing in her the way that Mercedes has. And Harley, it's clearly paid off, because Harley is doing she's doing a great job. Jermaine says everyone wants Mercedes and Athena at All In, but everyone's forgetting about Tekla. She's going to interfere and cost Athena the match. That will set up Tekla beating Athena for the ROH title. That's certainly a way that they could do it. I do want Mercedes Athena at All In, because that's what they've been telling us since this was announced. They've been planting seeds for this story since the literal day this match was announced. So I think they have to deliver at All In. But I could see Tekla getting involved, because Tekla and Athena cost Tekla a match in Stardom, and then Tekla got involved at Wrestle Dynasty. So clearly that's definitely a feud you can come back to, and Tekla definitely could come and get involved with Athena for sure. Wasn't something I had thought about until you just said that. Had slipped my mind. So I could definitely see that being that could be a Forbidden Door match. They could do Athena Tekla at Forbidden Door, perhaps. Regardless, I mean, they could, even if they do it at all, even if they were to do it at all, and you could turn around and do it then too. But I didn't think about Tekla coming in and being involved with Athena. And you could put, Tekla is definitely somebody you could put an ROH. I mean, I'm not overly familiar with her. I know a bit about her.
But she has a veteran status where you could actually put an ROH belt on her and have her be the person following Athena reasonably.
Right. So Brad says that Tekla could be involved, but he can't see her signing to be an ROH. But as we know, with most ROH champions that are not Athena, ROH titles are defended. They're mostly on AEW television as it is. We did get a TV title defense on Thursday from Red Velvet and La Catalina. So, but of course, the title did not change hands, because we don't change hands on Honor Club unless it's a pay-per-view. So there are some unknowns, which definitely makes it, I think as we get closer to All In, then it's probably going to get more obvious where things are going. But I think leading up to that, there's still a few questionable things, which is fun. And then I'm sure we'll have a clearer picture after the Detroit shows, and I can't wait
Yay.
to hear what Mel has to say about those shows. And I know that you're gonna have a fun time.
Yeah, have a good time. I'm
It's
very
gonna be
excited.
really great, especially because they're leading into a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna definitely. It's not gonna be like Collision where they were like, oh yeah, we have to do Collision right after we just debuted on Wednesday, and half of our wrestlers are going to Wrestle Dynasty, and we have a Collision to put on.
Yeah, right.
So at least yours will have some more thought into it.
They'll come back, I promise. I don't know that. Maybe they'll make it up to you. I hope they do.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm trying to think if there was anything else that we needed to talk about. I think we hit all like, because I think we hit everything. And so unless there's anything else that you can think of,
Nope,
I think
I'm
we got
good.
it. So much happened in wrestling this week. I'm like, am I forgetting? What am I forgetting? I feel like
you know what? Well, whatever we forgot, we'll talk about next week, or you'll see us tweeting about it or socialing
I feel like
about it.
I feel like I'm forgetting something, but maybe
You'll remember it as soon as we're off air.
Of course.
Yeah.
Always. So make sure that you follow us on follow Fight Game Media on social media. If you follow us on social media as well, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel because not only are we here, but you have the Dynamite Show on Wednesdays. You also have Speaking of Strong Style on Thursdays. And then you have the Joshi Show on Fight Game Media. And then also on the Fight Game Media feed, you have the Wrap, which is the WWE show, which I'm sure they're going to have lots to say about these WWE releases.
Indeed.
Especially because they are, I mean, not that they don't, I mean, obviously I'm watching too, but that's the WWE show. So if I would say tune into the Wrap on Wednesday.
I like hearing when they get spicy on
I'm
things.
sure they've got a lot to say about these releases. Josiah says that we forgot about the shoe.
We got the first shoe. You're right.
Yes,
I said that the other night.
So. Naito's last match was today. So was Bushi's. They were in I will have to go back and get to it. They were in it was the two of them and Hiramu and Shingo versus Ishii, Taka, Taichi, and I forget the fourth person. I'm sure Brad will tell me. But yeah, so they had their last match as contracted wrestlers in New Japan. I don't think this is it forever for them unless Naito's just peacing out and just like, I'm done, I'm retiring. But he did say there was a story from somebody because he posts his diary, and somebody posted this morning. It was, or they posted it 20 hours ago, I thought, this morning, and he went to tell these people at one of the arenas. He went to go tell all the employees bye, and then they were like, why do you look so sad? And he was like, oh, he was like, I'm for a freelance, I'm coming to work with you. Is what he told them. So yeah, I actually still need to go back and watch Jeff Cobb's last match as well. I haven't made it. Yes, and Resurgence. Thank you, Jermaine. Next weekend we have Resurgence. Mercedes versus Mina versus Azumi for the Strong Women's Title potential match of the year. Yes, that's going to be a really good one. Resurgence looks like it's a really good card. Definitely make sure you check out Speaking of Strong Style, because they are going to go through that card on Thursday, and I believe the show is Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's a Friday show. So definitely go check out Speaking of Strong Style if you want the breakdown of that. Hopefully I will get to it next weekend. We shall see. It's definitely on my list. And then Mel come back next week, so Mel can tell you all about her experience of Dynamite and Collision live. And depending on what all happens in this crazy world of wrestling, we'll see what we have to talk about. But maybe we'll have a doubler. Hopefully next Sunday we have a Double or Nothing card that's filling out. We also know that's Mother's Day, so if you cannot watch live, we completely understand. I will be doing stuff with my mom post podcast, so we will see how that goes. And then so if you can't watch live, we understand, or if you can't watch live in general, we understand. But so we'll be back here next Sunday at our regular time, and we will see you then.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.